Welcome, everybody. I'm so glad you could join us today for this webinar. My name is Sandra McNichol from childless.life. I'm a grief therapist, a life coach, childless not by choice, and very, very proud to say the World Childless Week People's Champion 2024-2025. I'm not going to get stuck on that too much because otherwise I'll need tissues already, but yeah, it's a real privilege to be with you all here today. Whether you're watching live together with us and interacting on the chat, or whether you are watching the recording later on, a huge welcome. Before I get started, I want to say a huge thank you to Stephanie and World Childless Week for inviting us today and for all of her efforts. It's now the 8th year of World Childless Week, which is absolutely amazing. I mention it each year, and I'll probably continue to mention it every year here on in, but World Childless Week was my doorway into the childless community. So I hold it in a really special place in my heart and will always be grateful for leading me into this beautiful community. Today, our topic is the concept of emotional seasons. And you might be thinking, what on earth is emotional seasons? But yeah, basically like most kind of coaching talk concept, which this is, and you get inspired by other coaches out there. So I really kind of wanted to get started by saying, this work was adapted from a coach, a very famous one in the States that you've probably heard of, called Martha Beck. And then there's a lady in Canada, completely separate works as well, called Krista, a lifeinprogress.ca. And basically I've taken some of the concepts from there and said, can it be applied to us and to our journeys? Let's see. So that's kind of like the idea today. So we're going to try and brainstorm it to see if it can be a metaphor for our childless journey and beyond. There is no map for becoming childless, and it can often feel like we're venturing into kind of uncharted territory. So I'm curious if this can give us a very high level framework. And I don't really like frameworks that box us in some ways. So I would say that, within each of this is, emotional, seasons. If we think about what time the sun rises in different parts of the world, it can be very unique and different. Well, this is the same. Even if we're in a winter season, it can feel very different for each one of us. It's unique as a day. So, so it's unique and varying as nature is. It's cyclical, which is then, those living losses that we go through, it's cyclical as well. So it's then you kind of go through different phases of becoming childless in some ways. Basically, sometimes it can feel like it's 4 seasons in one day, and sometimes it can feel like a season has lasted forever. So, kind of just giving a little bit of an insight there. Let's see if it's a useful way that then, we can discuss where we are just now and what tools are helpful for us. And perhaps give that tiny bit of hope that no matter how dark it feels at this moment in time, no one season will last forever. Okay, so I have some wonderful ladies here with me. Before we're going any further, I would really love that they introduce themselves. So before I do the introductions, I did want to say that Mariana Graham was due to join us from Australia today. Unfortunately, she has a family incident that then she is unable to join us. So yeah, just wishing her and her family all the best during this difficult time, and we hope that she can join us at another stage. But yeah, going round the room then. Suzanne, you're first on. Would you like to perhaps say who you are, where you come from, and perhaps just to give us an insight a little bit, although there's no times involved in this, how long have you known that you would be permanently childless? That kind of would be my things to kind of get started. Suzanne.
Okay. Hi, I'm Suzanne. I'm in the heart of the U.S. in Kansas City. So so grateful to participate today and be able to help bring light and support to those that are going through similar struggles. My story is kind of different because I'm childless not by choice because of a chronic illness that's I've had since age 18. So I never got a chance to try to have children. I'm 46 now, so obviously that's not going to happen. So I'd say probably from 35 years old on, it became pretty apparent that that wasn't going to happen for us. So that's when the intense grieving started. So, but yeah.
Thank you so much, and welcome, Suzanne.
Thank you.
Ellen.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ellen. I'm in Washington, D.C. And my childless journey started really, well, I guess in my early 40s when it really became time where I had to figure out, is this going to happen or not? And it did not. Luckily, I found Sandra actually a few years ago, I think maybe 3 or 4 years now. And that was during the hardest time where I just really realized, okay, it's not going to happen for me. And joining one of her groups was very, very transformative. And finding out about World Childless Week has been so helpful to know that there are like others out there who get it.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Helen. Emily.
Hi, I'm Emily. I live in California in the United States. And yeah, it just really became clear to me a few months ago. It's all still pretty new. And I remember asking my doctor at the time if there were any groups that he could recommend for support, and he didn't know of any. And he works with people who are trying to have babies all day long, and he didn't know of any that weren't trying to help people like figure out some other way. So I was so grateful to find Sandra and the folks here.
Thank you so much, Helen. Emily. Nikki.
Hello, I'm Nikki and I'm here in Glasgow in Scotland. And I went through lots and lots of IVF procedures and medical procedures, had multiple miscarriages, and reached a point where I couldn't take it anymore, emotionally and physically. So we stopped really believing and we stopped hoping 12 years ago. So in my late 30s that was. I'm now 50, and my 40s was rough, very, very difficult. And like the other girls have said here, I am so, so grateful that I found Sandra. I had tried lots and lots of different types of support, and this group is the one that has connected with me. So I'm honoured to be asked to be here, and I'm really proud of myself that I feel capable of doing it, because a few years ago this is not something I would have felt I could even cope with. So thank you for having me.
Beautiful. Thank you, Nikki. So for those out there that then are thinking, what on earth is this? Emotional seasons. Well, what is this topic? Let's kind of do a bit of a deep dive. We're going to go through each season. I'm going to start it a little bit because I think it's where we all started, sort of type thing, as to, you know, the loss of our dream of, you know, becoming biological parents would be the, or, you know, around, you know, how we became childless. And for me, that starts in the emotional autumn, or emotional fall, depending upon what part of the world that you're in. So it can be, you know, we use slightly different language in different places. The other thing I kind of wanted to stress before getting in is, you know, emotional seasons. We're using it as a metaphor from the natural seasons, but they don't fit neatly into 3-month cycles. An emotional season could last a day or a decade. You know, it's then each one of our experiences are different, and, you know, that's then, so, you know, there's that flexibility in there as well. So, you know, so an emotional season, however long that would be, of transitioning from that productivity and hope, from light towards darkness, basically towards loss, would be the emotional autumn that we're kind of starting with. So just as a tree loses its leaves in fall, we childless at some stage, in our own unique way, feel, hear, or start to believe, it really looks like this is not going to happen for me. Perhaps I won't be a parent, you know, and somehow that reaches each one of us in our own unique, different ways. It's a heartbreaking moment that after all the hopes and the dreams, but it's still one that we might not truly believe yet. Just like a summer's days can come along and fall, you know, we might dance between that summer and that autumn, still thinking, why try something else? What other options are available? But sooner or later, if we become permanently childless, we'll feel this unique loss in our own unique way. Triggered by the profound loss of our parenthood dream, we start to embark upon a deep journey of self-discovery, shedding those old layers and releasing people and things that no longer serve us. There's no energy for people pleasing. We feel really driven to kind of back to our core in some way, to embrace our truth. But sometimes, whilst it's screaming from our pores, we often sit in silence and we're unable to express it. And we, keep our distance and isolate slightly, or lots, depending upon the situation. So on the outside, it might look normal, like we're going around our daily business. But on the inside, we feel more and more separate from the world. It's like life is going on out there and we're perhaps inside something else. Perhaps it feels like we're almost underwater, like seeing the world and hearing it, but thinking, I'm somehow separate from this. Along with the emotional autumn comes anger, sadness, envy, and sometimes it feels just so unfair that others have what we so desired. We feel perhaps constantly tired, yet along with the exhaustion, there's a type of liberalization. Perhaps, just perhaps, we're starting to come back to the core of what's important to us. That would be my introduction on an emotional autumn, thinking about how this journey may or may not start for us. And I'd like to brainstorm it a little bit, as in, but put some reality against this, because this is obviously driven from my experiences. And in the introduction, I said, hey, I'm only one person here. There's 1,000 different voices, 1,000 different ways as to how we become childless. So I'm curious, as much or as little as you ladies would like to share, but how does this resonate with you? What do you agree with? What do you disagree with? And, what would you like to share about your stories, as much or as little as you'd like to? Emily, you were the freshest one amongst us when you did the introductions. So, you're only a few months into your journey, and I think it's really precious and sweet that you're here with us. So, thank you for joining us in particular today. How does this connect with you? How does your emotional autumn look? What's your thoughts?
Thanks, Sandra. Yeah, I was just getting ready to jump in because that does feel like it really reflects how this feels to me. I notice for me, I experience a lot of questions. I just feel full of questions where before this autumn started, I felt like I was very driven and goal oriented and just very purposeful. And yeah, my experience of this is a lot of like hard to accept moments of trying to imagine, well, now what is my life going to look like? And what does it even mean to have a good life now, to live a full life, to have a meaningful life, without this dream being fulfilled. And so it feels like a little bit like drifting to me, and sort of looking about for some kind of something solid to kind of stand on. And the image that you gave of like the leaves falling off the tree, and just starting to look into what looks kind of dark, that feels really resonant for me.
Thank you, Emily. Just to kind of like, I don't know, build upon it a little bit from, I don't know which season, and it's another thing that I would say is that then I'm a true believer that we're all experts of ourselves. So you get to classify what season you're in, and but the rest of the ladies have had some more time. How does this look from the time that the distance of that time has given? Is then what I wanted to say. Who else would you like to jump in and share something on this one?
I'll jump in if that's okay. The concept of time is really interesting, because when I listen to you describing that season of autumn, I have a very specific moment that comes to mind, and it's actually from way back 12 years ago, but I'm also aware that I've had many autumns over 12 years. But I thought, as I say, it's so aligned with the description you gave us. I thought I would talk about a time when the actual day we decided we were finished. I can remember it so clearly. And it's weird because you would think I would have plunged straight into winter, but I didn't. I had this very strange, what I now realise is that autumnal transition from the hope of yet another IVF cycle. And instead of going down into the depth of winter, I went to a place of shedding all the ideas I had and trying to find some level of enjoyment in the freedom. And my God, I tried. I tried and I tried. I remember actually coming home from the hospital and saying to my husband, we're done. I can't take any more. And we opened a bottle of wine, and it was the first bottle of wine I had had in 7 years or something. And I said, okay, we've still got money in the bank for one last cycle that we're not doing. Let's buy a camper van. And it was this idea of shedding who I was, all the things that I valued about what I thought I would be as a mum. That moment of saying, well, they're not going to happen, I'd started throwing them away and thinking, well, what will I put in place? I wasn't happy, but I was definitely not in the winter yet. And I remember thinking, why am I not completely like having a meltdown here? I remember actually questioning myself about it that day. So it's a very specific point in time. I didn't understand why I wasn't just lying in a puddle on the floor, which I had done on many occasions. But I had maybe about a week of that where there was relief. There was relief that the medical stuff was over. There was relief that the cycles were over. And I thought, well, at least I now know what I'm dealing with. And when we come to talk about winter, I've got plenty to say on that. But I found autumn a really surprising point in time that I hadn't expected.
Okay, really interesting. And it's funny when I find this anytime we have chats amongst us as well, that you remind me parts of my journey as well, that the minute that we got the phone call saying, wasn't pregnant and we knew it was over at that moment in time, my husband came along and said, come on, where are we going on holiday then? Hong Kong, Philippines? How does that sound? And, we tried to, look on the bright side and jump across to what I would call spring directly and go, hey, let's just bypass this winter. This isn't going to happen. Let's, get a ticket, go to the sun. This is like great sort of type thing. And trying to, for me in my particular story, there was a big cloud called a global pandemic happening around the corner, which then cut all of my plans and forced me into that winter was then the piece. But thank you so much for that, Nikki.
I'll jump in that one thing that I realized is that I didn't know I was in autumn until I was in winter, right? Like I think during my autumn time, there was so much flip-flopping in my mind of like, well, maybe it could still happen. Like I had gone through IUI and that didn't work and was trying to decide would I do IVF, but really I was single at the time and didn't want to do that. But still had this idea in my head, like maybe it will still happen somehow, maybe, maybe a partner who wants to adopt, right? So I think it took me a while to really decide, okay, this is not going to happen. So I think like by that time I was already in winter. I think sometimes in autumn we kind of still have a little hope. Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you on that one. So
yeah,
cool. Suzanne.
I think for me, winter was so brutal and just, the wailing out on the floor kind of grief, that coming into autumn, that's kind of where I went next, was just kind of a breath of fresh air a little bit, for me, just because I had a lot of shedding to do, a lot of traits, a lot of expectations. a lot of changes in relationships in my life, but also I started to get a little glimmer of hope, as I went into spring too, that, I could have a life outside of this, being a mother. And so I just got a little bit of glimpse of that, and just all the changes that I was making in my life, were painful, the shedding of all those traits and people and things, but it also kind of made me lighter in a way. So autumn wasn't too bad for me compared to some of the other. I mean, it's all painful, of
Yeah.
course, you know what I mean.
But it's interesting because if I'm understanding Suzanne correctly as well, she feels like she went directly into dark winter and then took a step back and went into an autumn afterwards as then. So it's interesting that in her case, she feels like, it wasn't, in the traditional way, which is completely fine as well. You can pick whatever season that you're in and what feels right for you. So thank you. Probably just 1 minute on it sort of type thing, but for MD who is in autumn, again, we can't really give advice and such likes because we're all so unique, but what was useful for you? What was then, what did self-care or anything look like for you? What was useful that helped you get through that shedding kind of stage?
I think for me, it was just kind of starting to go within and, find out who I am, now, in this new place that I'm at. And just, I started saying no to baby showers, for instance. That was huge for me because I would just go and leave in tears and just be, just in a puddle by the end of the night. And, or I'd feel the guilt and all night long just sit there in that torment. So either way I was losing. So eventually, as I worked through it with, therapy and inner work and all this stuff and letting go of some of those expectations and grief, I was able to get to a point where I feel like, okay, I'm putting myself first, and that feels okay, not only okay, but right, where I should be. And of course, send a gift or whatever, that kind of thing. But just setting some boundaries a little bit kind of helped me. And just a lot of still inner work of what needs to be shedding, and just the awareness I think was really important in that phase of what needs to happen in my life to help me go forward, not fall back into winter for me since I'm not in sync. But that was really important.
Mhm.
I'm really struggling with self-care right now, and I'm trying to just be patient with myself that it's like a season and it's not forever. And um, I'm trying to make little goals rather than big ones for taking care of myself. And then finding this community has been like revolutionary. Like I can't overstate how wonderful it's been to have other people to um, connect with who have been through something like parallel or similar to this.
Mm.
That's really helpful for all the thoughts that like, oh, I'm all alone and this feels nobody can understand and all of those things. It's been so meaningful to find other people who can relate.
Yeah, it's kind of like a balm to that isolation that we feel sometimes from our traditional communities that we have, that somehow we feel that we don't fit anymore, and somehow finding others that do get it can be. So yeah, definitely on that side. Cool. I'm going to move on to winter because otherwise I think we could probably just do an hour's call on autumn and winter, and I do want to make some time for spring and summer because I think it's important to see the light coming through at some stages as well as then, so that then yeah. So let me then, and if there's time at the end, we can come back and add some other bits and pieces in. But okay. So my idea of a emotional winter or a childless emotional winter would be then there's a big difference between early winter and late winter. There's really, but in early winter, we face the darkest night, is then in early winter, we have this darkest night in the natural world, and in the emotional world, it can feel like a dark night of the soul. It can feel almost terrifying. It's starting now to really release the traditional role of motherhood or parent that we always dreamt of, but not knowing who we're going to become. And Emily was speaking around this a minute ago to a certain extent. It's this liminal space, and we naturally resist this, and we want to fight and keep our identity. But there becomes a moment of surrender when we step into it. And surrender doesn't mean giving up or losing. Rather, it's a release of control and a source of profound power. Some people imagine this as a dark hole. I've heard many people speak around it as a dark pit, a dark hole. And when we enter into it, we're often equipped with more strength, resilience, and support than we imagined. Others are in there shining the light in the darkness for us. And we find our own strengths and resources in there. On the surface, in winter, it may feel everything is dead or snowy, yet an invisible transformation is happening, and we're quietly evolving and growing roots, silently preparing for the promise of spring. Then one day, when we least expect it, a glimmer of light arrives. We feel like we've cried enough tears. We're fed up being angry with the world. And somehow, and we don't know why, it just suddenly comes at its own time and pace, we start to feel a tiny bit lighter. Something starts to stir in us. For some of us, it's a voice. Others, it's a symbol. Others, it's, I don't know, a whisper or something. I don't know, you can tell me. But there's a perhaps, just perhaps, I can have a fulfilling life. And it's really, really fragile. And, this really quiet voice that comes to start with. What's your thoughts on this one, ladies? Who would like to kick off?
I'll start. Winter. I've had many, many, many winters. Some absolutely brutal ones. Where I shut down. I hibernate. That's the word I would use. Communication stops. Close friends and family usually spot it and say, "You've gone quiet. What do you need?" sort of thing. But way at the beginning, close friends and family didn't know that's what it was, but I just knew I couldn't function in society because I didn't fit. So yeah, I found myself curled up on the floor with a blanket over me, just thinking I can't come out. It's overwhelming and it's too much. And there's like a snowstorm going on out there and I need to just hide until it passes. So hibernating, hiding, hunkering down until the storm passes enough that it maybe feels safe to stick my head out. And like you're saying, Sandra, I can't quite say what the specific moments are where you get that wee moment that you think it might have passed, but it has happened and it's happened again and again and again. And usually each time the winter's been a little shorter. So 12 years of it, I now know, I feel winter is coming. I feel when it's coming. I know what I need to put in place in preparation for the hibernation. And sometimes I'm really lucky and it's like a day and then it's gone. And sometimes it's a little bit longer. But I've been through it often enough that I do know I'll come out the other side. And for me, that's the big learning part. Over time, the first time you go through it, you don't know if you're going to make it. Or I certainly didn't know if I would make it. And then when it happens again, you think, oh my God, I didn't know it was going to come back. So it took quite a few seasons for me to realise, this is part of life. And that acceptance that you talk about, eventually you feel it coming and you think, okay, it's a bit like a panic attack. I feel it coming. I'm going to have to breathe through it and I will come out the other side of it. And I have to say, since finding our group, the winters have been very short. Yeah. But I really deeply empathise for people who are right in the midst of it, because it's not where anybody ever wants to be.
Yeah. Suzanne, yeah, I was going to say I could see with a little wiggle in your mouth that you wanted to speak next. So
Yeah, I mean, winter is just brutal. It's like she said, it's just so brutal. You know, for me, like I said, I literally was on the ground. It was, 11 years ago. I didn't know about this community or any community out there. There weren't many lifeboats. I was just like Emily had spoken about, felt like I was drowning and just needed something to hang on to, and I couldn't find anything there. So it was a dark, dark night of the soul, like you said, in a deep hole. So, like Nikki said, my heart goes out to those that are in the depths of it right now, because sometimes I didn't know if I was going to make it. I couldn't breathe. I was just in the grief so intensely that it overtook me. And it will get better. I say to those of you in there, but it's tough. And now, like Nikki said, going through the winters, to have the tools and resources and support and community like Sanders groups and the other resources out there makes a world of difference. I mean, now I know, what I need during those times, and just to have that makes just the biggest change. So not having that it feels so hopeless, and now that I know I'm in it, I can be aware of where I'm at because I've been here so many times, and it's not as intense, of course, as the first round by any means. And it's interesting how it works, how you change and evolve and grow and learn and as a person, but it's the pain's still in there. It's just not like it was, but it's brutal when in the thick of it.
I'm curious as well about, and whoever would like to speak to this point, about that invisible transformation happening, perhaps from a little bit of distance as well. We can see this because sometimes we're in the midst of it, we're grieving, we're screaming, we're, really, really, really in the depth of it. But I don't know what there's beauty and pain in every season, let's say. So, what transformations or what things have we learned about ourselves which we're comfortable to share, obviously, in a public webinar?
I think for me, I noticed the transformation more. Well, I do want to still address that, like, the winter was hard and I was crying a lot and really questioning the meaning of my life. But I will say the transformation, I think, came even very quickly into finding other people who get it, like having other women to talk to who really wanted to be moms, who were not going to be moms. There's something about just knowing that someone understood that started easy than pain for me. And what I really noticed in terms of transformation was when people was like, I would find out about friends who were pregnant, or like therapy clients who were pregnant, where it didn't actually hurt as much anymore, where I could actually feel excited for someone. I feel like that's where I started to notice some transformation, right? Because I think some of that was just having people who got it and knowing I had your support. Yeah.
That's really interesting, Ellen, because I would say the biggest transformation for me was the ability to put boundaries in place. I don't think I had good boundaries prior to this whole experience. Just in life, I think I didn't recognize other people's, and I don't think I really had any myself. And those dark, dark, dark moments are for me, when I recognized what my own limits were, limits and boundaries. And, I could work out in those really deep, dark moments who's safe. That was always my thing, safety. Who is safe? Who can I let close? Who can get in the boundary kind of thing? And so I went from being quite a yes person. Yes, I'll go here. Yes, I'll do this. Yes, I'll do that. And I shrank it all down. And to be honest, I've never massively opened it back up. I've got a circle of trust. And when you're in it, you're one of my people, you're my tribe. But if you're not in, then I don't feel a duty to have to go and be jolly and excited about things. So I have still not embraced the feelings of joy for somebody else's pregnancy. having said that, that might be because the people in my circle of trust have not been pregnant. But that was, I would say, for me, that's been a massive growth, which sounds weird because it sounds like a shrink, but it's not. It's actually a growth to know what my boundaries are, what I believe in, what I stand for, and that sense of loyalty I have to the people who are in my circle of trust is huge. But I do envy you if you've got the ability to have the joy for people when they're pregnant, because I've not found that, I'm afraid.
And I think that's a really relevant comment to make as well, because we all heal at different speeds and at different moments, and different things will feel good for one and different for another. And that's, again, just as nature is really unique, then each one of us, and that doesn't make any one of us right, wrong, broken, vexed, whatever sort of type thing. So it's all good as then. And I think embracing whatever comes along for us. Some people from day one were have always been great with other people's babies, and other people till the day that they die will be like, sorry, this is not for me, and I need to keep some distance, and both are completely okay, is then the thing. Emily, I know that then, you were kind of saying that you're quite early in, so I'm not sure, if you wanted to make some comments on winter, or whether you would like to hear from the group as to, hey, some tips and hints as to what is useful, how do you get through this, is then, give me some arrows and some guide points. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I'd love to hear what other people have found useful to navigate that.
So already from people's parts then, or their different descriptions, and we've already heard something around, finding safe people who get it then as a big thing there. Sometimes shrinking down that circle was useful for Nikki, what she was saying. What else has been helpful? Just to really step into that grief and allow it.
I think for me, it just kind of threw me into not even knowing who I was, so to kind of find some light in that, I had to go within and learn who I am, like what makes me, Suzanne, and, what gifts do I have to bring to the world? What brings me joy? What do I really like, when I'm not people pleasing, I had to kind of start to sort all of that out. So that helped me a lot, just to go within and just find my true core self of, because I don't think I had done that before. So just, therapy was, super helpful for me. And just, I kind of leaned into my spiritual side, nature, that kind of thing. And just trying to find moments of peace when I felt like I couldn't breathe and I was drowning, of just maybe sitting out on my patio and, watching the butterflies. It seems so simple, but for me, it was a bigger picture, it kind of brought me that peace, like, okay, I'm going to be okay, at least in this moment, and I maybe will find that light again. So that was really huge for me. And I had to make myself do that, because it is an isolating time where, you do shrink and just kind of curl up, literally. So it was something that I had to be disciplined about, almost, okay, I'm going to go do this, for an hour or whatever, and just kind of force myself in the beginning. But it slowly became kind of a refuge for me, just to go out in nature and just, breathe and see the beauty. So it seems simple, like I said, but it was profound for me in my healing.
Yep. Sometimes the most simple things are the most useful things, and, it may sound like, I don't know, but, the butterfly has gone through such a big transformation, just somehow indirectly watching a butterfly and going, okay, it was a caterpillar and it's evolved into this beautiful thing. How the hell did I do that? I don't know, but it was possible. Let's just see. Is then, it can be, I don't know, it's then, yeah. But yeah, learning, going inwards and trying to discover what gives you joy, who you are, and yeah, what other possibilities.
I found, this might sound a bit strange, but like planned crying sessions. And my favourite place was the bath, because you're soaking anyway and it's private. And I found that before I could go trying to find the things that made me happy, I had to get the sadness out. I had to. It was just in every pore of my being. And you don't just want to walk about your life crying all the time, because you can't go to work and you can't be out in the shops. So I found that actually, if I could feel tears coming on and I was home, I would run a bath and I would sit in the bath and I would howl. You know, really, like the neighbours must have been worrying what was going on, but I would howl and just cry until it couldn't come out anymore. And I did a lot of that, rather than focus on trying to be okay with it. I focused on the fact, right, I'm not okay, so I need to express it. And one other thing I did kind of similar was we took a lot of holidays, but it wasn't, they weren't holidays where I was going to be happy. They were holidays where I was going to grieve, so that I wasn't always grieving in my home, because I didn't want my home to be a sad place. So if I was having a really tough time, I would say to my husband, could we do a weekend away? And we would go somewhere in the UK and, you know, go for walks, and I would just cry. But it meant I was kind of able to leave a wee bit of the grief in a different part of the country, and it wasn't all in my house. So people tease me about the number of holidays I go on, but I know I've got little pockets of grief dropped off all around the UK. And that kind of found helpful, that it wasn't all concentrated in the house.
And that's something useful, the planned crying session as well. For those of us that then struggle to connect with our emotions as well. It can be something that then if we want to cry all the time, it's like, no, I'm okay, I've got this. 7:30 is my crying hour and I'm allowed to cry for an hour, 7:30 each day, whatever. And it can give us kind of like space to continue with our lives a little bit, knowing that we've got that scheduled. And for those of us who have difficulty in connecting with our emotions as well, it's like, okay, I'm going to sit in silence. I'm not going to have any music. I'm not going to be meditating. I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to sit there and see what happens. And I'm going to have 30 minutes and just see what happens. And that can be useful as well for those who then struggle to connect with their emotions, because they'll may or may not naturally bubble up in those 30 minutes or hour or whatever you need. So yeah. We probably need to get on to spring, because we've got 15 minutes and we've got 2 seasons still to go. So emotional spring then signifies new beginnings, testing, trying new things, learning to take risks again. You're emerging from a long, hard season of growth. You feel a bit unsteady, uncertain. Although you don't fully see the path ahead, deep down, you're starting just a tiny bit, but growing little by little to trust that you'll find your way. Again, similar to autumn and summer, we can dance between late winter and early spring for as long as we need. We can start to daydream, but sometimes we fear that it won't work out and we don't have the energy or the strength quite yet for more disappointment. We're often understandably afraid of hope. Little by little, we start to get an itch to try new things. Perhaps it's as simple as changing our hair, but we vulnerably, small, little by little, start to take a brave step forward. We rediscovered our values and what was important to us in winter. This is kind of what Suzanne was speaking about a few minutes ago. But sometimes we're really unsure or scared of how to apply it. We start to see examples out there that other people have become fulfilled beyond their parenthood dream, but we don't really know what it means for us yet. It's wise to release the urgency to get it right, the desire to do something huge. We're worthy just as we are. Give time to play and try on new different identities or roles. As with everything, there's never any guarantee that these things will work, and sometimes we go scurrying back to winter to shed another layer of grief. And that's okay, because as we've heard the girls say, we become more and more resourced on how to handle that. Little by little, we start to build our confidence, learning to take risks and discover our unique path. Ellen.
Yeah, I'll speak on this, but I do want to go back to winter and my transition into spring.
Please do.
I think,
please do.
Yeah, for me, winter it was just like the others. It was helpful for me to get into nature. I found nature so healing, and also to also kind of plan grief holidays. For me, it was a grief retreat. I went to Oregon, decided to do a plant medicine retreat to help me grieve, just purely focused on grieving this loss. And that was very helpful for me. But I think what helped me transition into spring was this idea of, okay, well, I have to create the meaning in my life now. So who do I want to be? And I'm still figuring that out, but part of the nature was making me feel like I want to get in touch with like my inner wise woman, like kind of go back to like,
Mhm.
in a way, like the image of like a witchy woman, right? A woman who uses nature and magic and to heal people, right? Like I can be a healer in a certain way. And so that idea, like getting excited about like helping other women, helping other people with their grief, and kind of getting together with fellow witchy women and cackling with each other, you know. I know there was something about that I felt like I could embrace. And so I still go back to winter at times, but I think that idea of like, okay, well, I'm just gonna be this different type of woman now. That's been really helpful to me. Yeah.
Emily, we've all gone through different transitions in our life, and we haven't just got to this and came and there's not been any other things that have impacted us. I'm curious as to what you think might be useful for you when you get to spring. What might help you transition to spring? And it all goes naturally. You can't force these things. So I just wanted to hear a little bit more of your voice. And if you're like, Sandra, I passed, that's completely fine too. You're such a wise lady that then I wanted to hear a bit more from you.
Thanks. I think for me, it's really helpful to hear these other stories about how it's looked for people. And then I can try those on, different strategies that people used, and relationships that were supportive to them or not, and see what fits for me. Hearing Ellen share about her sort of new idea of like, oh, I can be this other kind of woman, that's really exciting and intriguing to me. I thought, oh, that's so helpful to imagine that there are these templates out there that don't have to be an exact fit, but they could sort of map onto my preferences and my experience in some way, that I could have some kind of script to follow. Because I think a lot of us have been trying to follow another kind of script for so long. It feels like a loss to not have clarity about where we're going.
I get that. Yep.
It's interesting because that script, I didn't want to give it up. I didn't want to be that other kind of woman. I wanted to be the mother script.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of seasons before I could even contemplate thinking what else it might look like instead. I just really struggled. And if people ask, do you have children? I had to make sure they knew that I didn't have them and that it had broken me. I couldn't bear for people to think I just wasn't a mother. So I always, for years I answered, no, I don't have children, sadly. Or, no, I'm really sad about it. It was like I had to make sure they knew that I was a kind of caring person, and a mother. I could have been a mother, but that has shifted for me. And like Ellen, I think I've maybe become a person that I didn't think I would ever become, but that's okay. So I'm a lady with a dog. I don't have the cats, but only because I'm allergic. I do have the dog. I'm utterly obsessed with her. I've got a busy life. I've got friends and family.
And
I
it's
do.
interesting just to speak about the dog. How did you feel about the dog in autumn and winter? Just if you'd like to share that.
Well, you know this, Sandra. So I went to an art class, right? That was one of my many, many things I tried because I can't draw. And I thought, right, well, maybe that's hidden inside me in this other woman that I could be. So I went to an art class and I was dreadful. But the lady next to me said, "Do you have children?" And I said, "No, sadly not. I'm really sad about it." And she said, "Well, why don't you get a dog?" And that was it. Packed up my stuff. I had to leave. I was utterly horrified that this lady would equate getting a dog to having a child. I just thought, how rude, how dare you? And she was a GP. I was utterly just horrified at that statement and told everybody that I knew that I was horrified, so nobody ever suggested getting a dog. And then 2 years ago, I just said to my husband one day, "I'm thinking we might get a dog." And he didn't know what to do because he knows how I feel. You know, he knew how I felt about it. But now we've got her, and she's the grand doggy of my parents. And I do call her Baby. I'm sorry, but she does get called Baby Grace. And yeah, she gets all the love.
It's really interesting. That's kind of why I opened Nikki, if she was comfortable in speaking about it a little bit, because sometimes those things that people suggest to us in autumn, winter, and we go, no, how dare you, whatever. Sometimes when we've gone through the seasons a little bit more, we go, okay, actually I see things differently now. But you know, it's okay to change your mind about things as well. And things do change as we go through the healing process. Was then, yeah. So thank you. I'm going to jump on to summer, the one that where everybody's probably going to go silent on me, but we'll see what happens with summer. So an emotional summer is classified by being in flow, high energy, doing lots, forgetting yourself again, and people pleasing again. You feel pulled in different directions. It's not meant that we're ecstatically happy all the time, but perhaps we feel more at peace with our childless journey. In winter, and Nikki was speaking about this a minute ago, I think. It was Nikki, yeah. In winter, we never thought it possible to be here, and we might have even resisted being here. But just like all the seasons, busier spells come round again, and we get absorbed in new projects. We move home, we get pets, we find ways to share our maternal or paternal love, and somehow start to feel more comfortable in our skin again. Being childless never leaves us, and it often profoundly changes who we are. In summer, we go for longer spells without being triggered, yet they can still come out of the blue. From going through the darkness of winter, we often become more resourced and learn how to meet these with more love and compassion. And with this, they may or may not pass quicker or feel less intense. Summer is a season of productivity. It's easy to get lost in ourselves again and fall into the trap. I'm not worthy unless I'm producing or doing something. You know, and that piece around basically I'm not worthy unless I'm a mother as well. So I need to kind of show and prove to the world. But with every cycle that we go through and every layer that we go through, we strip off that little tiny bit. We set boundaries quicker and we self-care quicker. And just like no season lasts forever, the high energy, being in flow, shall also end. But we've learned so much about ourselves. We've learned how to grieve. We've learned how to slow down. And perhaps we've learned how to love ourselves again. What do you think of summer? Because I know this one is the one that then is like, oh, summer, I don't want to get to summer, is, you know, it's not possible, or what's the thoughts on this one? Suzanne, would you like to give it?
Yeah, part of it I resonate with, and part of it I don't know that I have been in summer at all, which that's very long if I have. But as far as like, you know, the people pleasing, the going and losing yourself, I guess I have at times done that. But more importantly, I think for me is the loving myself again. You know, the self love, the self compassion part of it. I think that's where I kind of lean into a little bit more, and that's one of the blessings that's come from the pain for me is I was forced into, learning that and doing that, but now it's become such a pulling force for me, to go within and just have that self-love. So that's kind of a big part of summer for me that I do enjoy.
Wonderful. Aileen, would you like to say anything about summer?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'm there, but I do definitely notice what you said, that I feel some resistance sometimes to going into summer, or like when I'm forgetting about my childlessness, that feels great, but I don't want to stay there long, because I have this sense that like I want to make sure the world knows that you don't always get what you want in life, right? But that's okay. That like we can be okay even if we are grieving. So I think there is this sense I have that I want to remember that part of myself that is grieving still, or does have some grief that I carry with me, and just kind of make that be okay. But yes, I mean, I think there's times when I can put myself into my work and helping others and being a good friend and a good partner, and just find ways to just enjoy my life. So I'm really grateful for that. But I don't, there will always be times when I'm back in touch with the grief.
I think when I think about summer, I think about drive and being busy. Long days, long sunny days, and the busyness. And the benefit or the positive side of summer is that you catch yourself enjoying things, and you didn't ever know that was possible. So that's a warm feeling where you think, well, I've not thought about childlessness for the last hour. This is amazing. For me personally, my drive button sometimes gets stuck in the on position, and I do things, and you're quite right, Sandra, in saying that it's related to that worthiness issue. So if I can't be a mum, well, I'll run a marathon, which I did attempt, and then I got an injury, and it plunged me into a very dark winter. And I'm trying to think what else I've done. I mean, ridiculous things. So tried to run a marathon, tried to teach myself the piano. That's not too ridiculous. Tried to do a PhD whilst working full time. So I'm a wee bit nervous of summer, because when I get in the flow and the drive, I think, well, when's this going to come crashing down? When's this one going to burn out? So there's a discomfort with it, whilst at the same time I can catch myself really enjoying moments. So I feel I'm in that place at the moment. I've just opened a new business. Things are going really well. I'm really enjoying it. And there's this wee voice at the back of my head saying, at some point, the dark nights are coming. Be prepared. And that's hard. You don't want to live with this wee voice, but I've been through it enough times to know how this cycle can be.
I think another thing for me on summer, just to kind of mention it as well, again, it's kind of coming back to that dog comment in some ways, is quite often if we are in relationships, our partners grieve at different paces from ourselves. I remember really early on my husband being able to identify situations and going, thank God we don't have children just now, because otherwise, we wouldn't have the energy to do that. And I hated those comments. They really rubbed me up the wrong way. I was like, I won't have sleepless nights. I want a child having a tantrum. I don't care. I want all of that stuff. Is then so him thinking, oh, we're lucky. Look at, we could be there. But yeah. Whereas, I don't know, at my life stage, I'm going through the perimenopause, and I'm sleeping terribly again, sort of type thing, and on these pieces is then, and for the first time, I actually feel it myself as well, going, thank God I don't have a baby at this moment in time, and I'm going through this as well. It's then I'm like, oh God, did I just have that thought? Is that then? So again, the things that kind of rubbed the wrong way, I've got more space for them now as well. So don't know, just kind of wanted to add that in as well, that then, again, it evolves and all of that type of stuff. You know, maybe just to add another tiny bit in as well, but we probably need to close off, is then I think it was some 5 years into my journey, and again, time is not relevant, but just to kind of give a bit of an idea. And I think it was 2 years ago, a friend asked me if I would be a godmother to her child. And I really thought about it. I was like, oh, I don't know that I can do this. Is then, but luckily, this friend had waited 6 years to ask me to be the godmother, trying to find the right moment in my journey to ask her. So even that shows this is like quite a caring friend and all that type of stuff. So we had a very open chat about it, and I said, okay, these are the boundaries I need to put in place. I won't be coming to children's parties. I won't be doing this, that, and the next thing. And, you know, really, let's go step by step. I want to do it, but we need to find a way that, you know, I can be there for her daughter, and but still, you know, not put myself into situations that felt uncomfortable. So they actually had their 10th wedding anniversary on a boat, and I said, no, I can't go there. That's going to be completely families. I can't escape from a boat. You know, it's then how do I, like, I'm going to have to jump off this at some stage if, you know, it's triggering or whatever. So I said, no, I'm not going there. That was about a year in. And we've just come out of summer, and I've been to, there's a theme park, an old-fashioned one. We've been there, we've been to the water park, and we've done, and I'm like, oh, wow, I did all these kiddie things this summer. And I'm like, and I had fun. It was really nice to do this stuff. And I'm like, oh, yeah, how did that happen, sort of type thing. So I don't know, it's just interesting how things evolve at our own pace and our own time as well. So I just wanted to mention some of those things as well, that sometimes in spring we do those things with fear, going, oh God, like, can I do this? I'm not really sure. It feels right, but I'm not sure that I'm ready for it yet. So, you know, cool. So this was kind of like, yeah, I don't know, I'd maybe like to just kind of do a little bit of a closeout with, after you've heard all of the different seasons, what season do you currently think that you're in? Emily, maybe starting off with you.
Yeah, I think I'm probably in that autumn to winter spot.
Yep, cool. Thank you so much. Nikki, what season do you think you're in?
I think I'm in summer. After what was a really long winter that I feel lasted quite a few years, and then I met you guys and went through a lovely spring, which gave me the confidence to do what I'm now doing. So yeah, I'm going to
Wow.
be brave and say I'm in summer.
That sounds huge to hear. So
That's the first time I've said it out loud.
oh, cool. Ellen?
I think I'm in spring.
Mm-mm.
Sometimes I bounce to winter, but I think spring.
Completely normal and natural. Yeah.
Yeah.
Suzanne?
I'm in spring mostly. You know, all the renewal and, you know, just things I'm learning about myself and, you know, different experiences I'm taking on. So a little bit of fall, well, winter, you know, comes of course, but a little bit of fall and still shedding some traits that don't serve me anymore, and, you know, boundaries and things like that. Well,
Yeah. Cool. Perfect. So the reason why I ask everybody as well, you know, what season they believe that they're in is, as I said, like throughout the webinar, I believe that you're an expert of you, and you can only decide kind of, you know, where you are at this moment in time. So you might listen to this webinar and think, yeah, emotional season's not useful for me. Throw it in the bin. You know, take whatever is useful for you, and what's not, throw it away. You know, if you're hearing some of the things the girls have suggested on how to help yourself through whatever season that you think that you identify with, then brilliant. Take whatever is useful out of this for you. For me, you know, in a very like early stage when I was still in winter, somehow this gave me some hope that, you know, no season lasts forever. So what else I like about it is, you know, there are no timelines. Healing will take as long as it's going to take. It gives us that hope that the darkness won't last forever. And it normalizes darkness and stillness in our lives when the world wants us to be productive and in summer and happy all the time. It's not normal, it's not natural to be like that. So yeah, basically, you know, we're there. And that cyclical piece as well. really resonated with me, that then we didn't really get into it today, but you know, there's those different layers that go round and round. Nikki had referred to a lot, that she's been through winter many times. There's so many different layers that we go through. You know, I'm always really grateful to our elders out there as well, who, you know, are showing us ahead to say, you know, oh, watch out for the grandchildren coming along. That then, you know, pulls us down again. So I think, okay, fine, you know, I'm now aware of it. I don't feel like a failure when I enter into another round of losses. It's completely normal and natural. So, you know, that's some of the reasons I like it. I'd like to close out, you know, saying a huge thank you to the ladies and to Stephanie again. And I'll close out with a poem that then I thought kind of like, I don't know, summarise some of this for me. So, there will be some very painful moments in your life, my friend. There will be moments, days even, when the sun doesn't even seem to rise in the sky, and the breath feels sucked right out of your lungs, when food has no taste and the world has no joy, and everything seems like an effort too far. Yes, my friend, there'll be some very painful moments in your life. But you will get through them. This too shall pass, because life is a way of throwing you a rope. Just at the moment when you thought you couldn't swim another stroke, all you have to do is grab it. And one day, as is the way of life, the sun will suddenly beat down on your face again, and the air will feel fresher than it ever did. And there will be laughter, there will be love, there will be joy, and life will be sweet, like a summer after a long winter. A winter that was so dark, each colour that appears, it feels like it's the first time you're seeing it. This is when you must live, really live. For just as the bad times do not last forever, neither do the good. This too shall pass. But that is life, so embrace the joy when it comes and let fear slide away. And when the dark times come around again, and they will, remember you have what you need to survive. And you will survive, my friend, you really will. Keep the important people close, focus on what truly matters, and you will find yourself dragged to safety each time the storm comes round. And on the days when your sun is high in the sky, but you notice another facing bad weather, you drop your raft and you go to them. And if they don't climb in with you to safety, you simply stay with them until the stormy water has calmed down. The sun rises again, and it always does. This is a poem by Donna Ashworth. Thank you all, and yeah, have a lovely World Childless Week and rest of the day. Thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you.